Check, 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 check. Does it need to be this? It might need to be
Good.
this. Turned on.
It's on.
Check, 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 check. Does it need to be this? It might need to be this. Check, check, on. Hey, there we go.
It's on. Everything's on.
Check, 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 check. Does it need to be this? It might need to be this. Check, check, on. Hey, there we go.
It's on. Everything's on.
Check, 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 check.
I'll do it. We'll call meeting to order for the special Board of Ed special meeting. Let's recite the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
I think we should get a date stamp also of 5:40 as a start. For the call to order.
No, Irma's got the minute.
Ernest got the minutes, okay. Next item is facilities and finance, non-lapsing account. Actually, do you want to have Bill do an overview of where we are, what was bought, what's open yet on the first sheet? Because I notice we have some invoices. I don't know what's actually been received and installed. And then what's left to be,
Well, like the xylophones say that they're on back order, but I
No,
thought we
all right,
had the
but
xylophone.
The other ones are actually here, yeah. So that one is done. I could tell you that the shot clock has not arrived.
what did you say about the xylophones?
They arrived.
Arrived?
They're in the
Okay.
classroom. So xylophones that's done. The stage curtain we're still trying to contact a company that quoted that. And they're just not responding. So that's kind of in limbo.
Well,
you
getting
know,
back, how about the gate for the,
Gate for septic access,
Yeah.
we're holding off on that one. Because of the blacktop replacement at the elementary school, that's gonna be part of the steep grant with the town. So we're holding off on that one, because we would have had to just rip it out.
Can I
and put it
ask, have
Back and
we,
pay for it twice.
are we out for bid on the paving?
Yeah, there's an RFP that Christine Diaz is writing that includes the town portion of the project and our elementary school blacktop portion of the project. And we just met with her, Bill and I. And Randy met with her and Don Hill just last week and to give them the details on our part of the project. So they can write that RFP.
Did that include the possibility of those extra parking spaces?
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna have a double gate, hopefully a sliding gate, so it's easier to use. And then we could park cars there if we wanted to. We were gonna hold off on actually
I
painting.
mean the other side of the space. We had talked at a previous meeting about the idea of expanding where there's grass up to the chain link fence on the side of Route 2. The possibility of expanding out that way and putting in some diagonal parking spaces. So because the other parking spaces would only be for evening events when the kids weren't in school. But even now, when there's snow and things like that, there's not enough staff parking even when there's snow that's involved. And so we had
Yeah, I
talked
don't
about
know.
possibly trying to add those on the other side. Did that ever get?
No, I don't know. I mean,
Make sure that, one of us is on site, as well as Randy, will maybe walk the space with Randy, so we can what we're looking for there. That one's good. We don't want to miss out on that.
Well, that's what I don't, if it's gonna cost us a tiny bit more to be
I'll make a note of that we'll discuss it with Randy and kind of walk that space so that the clearance.
the landscape study is in process. We haven't gotten results of that yet. The HR audit and handbook is in process. They're gonna write it for us. But we have met with them a few times and already have implemented some of their recommendations. But they were already impressed with the new central office team and what we're doing regarding HR. Irma is the head of that. We don't need, we did order the gate to separate the gym area from commons area, has not arrived yet, but it's supposed to arrive later this week. It would have been great for tonight's basketball game,
next season? Yeah, no doubt.
right? We did get a order of Chromebooks in, 60 Chromebooks, which Greg are now setting up. So,
How about the
There's that.
whiteboards? The one above it?
oh, the whiteboard, no, oh, did we get those? No, not yet. It is frustrating to order things and have to wait so long for them to come in. Or to get installed. But. So there, I think maybe does that. Yeah, the acoustic shells way back up after the xylophones, those came in months ago.
And then the safety net for the baseball field, that is all
Um,
set.
I believe so. Bill, do you know about the safety nets for the baseball fields?
Last I went by, there were no nets up. The new backstop is up, but there's no nets.
So then the nets go up during the season, maybe.
Right,
Yeah, maybe that's what it is.
yeah,
But there would have to be posts there or something, right? There are?
Okay.
Oh, the post holes are there. Okay.
Are we on Zoom? Should I talk in the microphone?
are we on Zoom?
Yeah, we are
Yeah,
on Zoom.
yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, hi.
Brian's there.
Okay. Sorry. I just had a question. Can you remind me about the stage curtains? That was for the high school, correct?
It's for the high school, yeah, high
Okay.
school, middle school.
And we were all good with the elementary school, right?
In terms of curtain,
Or whatever they needed for their production stage lighting.
Lighting, I think is what they needed, right?
we,
Yeah, the lighting.
yeah, I thought we were all set. Recently I heard that maybe that's not the case.
Okay,
It sounds like maybe there was like a miscommunication about.
Yeah.
What
What
was
lighting?
fixed.
Hmm.
And that being fixed, but not being stage lighting, that was just like the.
Right,
oh, okay.
yeah, and they weren't turning on in a
Right, and
reliable way, and so we fixed that, and
Okay,
we kind of thought that was it. And they were all set.
okay.
But it seems as though maybe they need additional lighting for like drama productions.
Yeah, okay, okay,
Which we did not really know about.
okay, okay. I remember we had talked about it and then it kind of went away, so I just wanted to.
And I
follow up.
think we have reached out to Rob to talk to the drama department themselves, so that if the drama department needs something on the elementary side, they need to be coming forward and asking for that
Okay.
directly.
And I think they're.
Yeah.
going to. This
Okay,
is development.
okay.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know if you're ready to go to the second page, which we made a little bigger on this version for you to see it, but what Bill and I worked on was a pretty good list of potential items from projects that the board might want to consider using some non-lapsing funds for. And some of the numbers are, probably more accurate than others. Some are real kind of guesstimates at this point, and I believe that, possibly there should be more money allocated to certain items than others. Maybe certain items on here aren't even on the list, but what we wanted to show was that there is a plan, or at least a draft plan, to spend all of the money on really useful things. So I think this is what that shows.
Was there any way to prioritize what the school needs are first versus us kind of?
Yeah, well, I do think that a storage shed or garage type structure is a big priority, because right now we leave the snow blowers out in the weather overnight, chained to columns attached to the building. We have to bring them across the road because the storage shed that we have now, the little white building, is now in the middle of nowhere because they took down the rest of the building over here, and it was not big enough. And we're also looking to absorb grounds functions within the facilities department, going down a position, okay, which is why, one of the reasons why the budget is as low as it is for next year, which means we might need another lawnmower, right? So you'll see on here grounds equipment, because the landscaping is done in-house. Well, that could include a lawnmower, some weed whackers and that type of thing. But then we need a space to put that, to store it, right? So a adequately sized storage shed, I think is a priority. It seems to be well supported by the maintenance department and everybody else, principals. It just kind of makes sense to have that. The security cameras are another, I think, priority because it has to do with safety. And ironically, we're waiting for the quote and it came in today from a company. And we're looking at like $39,000 to buy an additional 19 cameras. Okay, that will kind of meld into our current system.
Can I ask a question about
Yeah.
that? The security cameras, the bankers windows, the bollards, those are all safety things.
Bollards, yeah.
Bollards. The governor has a safety grant available right now that he just announced.
Mhm.
Have we researched that, looked into that? Because I think all those things would fall under that.
We could take a look at that.
Okay.
We haven't dug into that yet. I have some papers on my desk about that, but
Okay.
we
So
can.
I
we
know
can
it's
take a look.
it seems to be a pretty
You're giving a lot of money.
good grant. Yeah, I think we would qualify to be able to cover all three of those things under that. grant
Okay,
fund.
well, we
Can-
could take a look.
Can I also ask, I guess I'm just a little confused when it comes to these cameras because we've gotten a variety of different things over time, because originally we were told we already owned all of the cameras and all we needed to do was put the cameras in,
Right.
but we don't own the cameras?
We don't own enough. No, we had a couple other ones and we installed one recently in the high school, middle school, outside the gymnasium. And that's working. But we don't have we don't have the cameras. We don't.
Okay,
there might
they
be
they
one or
talked
two
before like there
others
were
that
like
we do
boxes
have,
of cameras
but-
sitting around that hadn't gotten installed, was like the image we were brought to believe last spring. A lot, like I mean, it was presented like we have all of these cameras and they're just sitting in boxes
And
and
we
they're
need to
not going
install
in. We
them.
need to pay somebody to install them, was what we were told originally. Not,
We could double check. I don't believe that we have a whole bunch of cameras in boxes. I believe we had a couple. And they were to replace other cameras if they went down, but we'll double check.
Maybe we had cameras in the hallways and whatnot, but there were no cameras in the stairwells or
Yeah,
blind
stairwells,
spots.
yep. And some hallways didn't have good coverage.
Are the cameras that you're, sorry, I'm chiming in here. Are the cameras that you're also looking to get cameras to overlap? I think as you were about to say, Troy, those areas where there are blind spots.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, which it would take care of some blind spots and also it would install working cameras in the tunnel, which we don't have currently.
Okay.
Hey, back on the storage shed, is it inappropriate to ask kind of for a plan of where it's gonna go, what it's gonna look like, and annual maintenance cost that you think it'll be, if anything,
For what?
before
Well,
we commit to
In,
something
in,
like
in
that?
terms of location, we were really thinking on the grassy area right between the two buildings. Between the high school, middle school and elementary school. There's a pump out there, pump like house. On that location, and it's a pretty big grassy area that we believe it could be installed right there. And it would be convenient to both schools if you have to move a snow blower this way or that way. Convenient to taking out the grounds equipment to go either way. It seems to be the most logical location. In terms of its look, I think it really kind of depends on the bids that come in. We can certainly suggest we want a certain look. I think we want it to blend in and you know, look nice in some way, whatever that is. We don't want it like sticking out like a sore thumb.
Or Conex box or something like that. Right?
Something like it,
Well,
maybe
that's
like
what we
a,
had in the parking lot, so. Yeah, I'm just saying, it'd be nice to have some sort of idea or a plan of.
yeah, like, I mean, the board can kind of maybe
So
chime in on what
it's
you want it
just-
to look like.
So a lot of these are placeholders right now, right? So we're gonna have to get bids certainly on something like that. And Troy and I talked a little bit about even looking at some metal buildings are significantly cheaper than wood stick built buildings. So I think if we're doing a project to that size, we're gonna certainly do our due diligence with that, look with what the plan is, where is it going to go? Some different bids. I think Randy said he was already starting to look into that. So I think it's really important when we're laying these numbers out, especially when we're talking to the Board of Finance, none of these numbers have been bid. Other than the IT cameras that you just got a bid back for 39,000. We don't have a set price on the storage shed. So I think we want to think about that and, obviously look at the cheapest options possible. I still feel like that's a really big number for that. So I think we need to see where that comes before we commit to that. Just as far as the shed goes, because that's a big number on here. The other one that's concerning to me personally is that we are doing a study on the fields and all of a sudden our 140 grand that we had allocated for the fields is gone. And that's something that's kind of been on the radar for us as a priority for a very, very long time. So we need to, discuss where do we want to, like to Alex's point, where do we want to prioritize some of these items?
And it's hard to do that without the results of the ground study.
Right, right.
I have a question. On this first sheet, we had purchased hardware for the elementary school curtain, right? I don't see it here. I don't.
Bill, is it
remember.
possible we just paid for that out of
It
Board
was,
of Ed funds?
I think it was $10,000.
You remember that?
I don't remember the,
It may have been lower than 10 because it was just the brackets, right? Like we
It was
had
just
the
the
camera,
brackets.
it was just, we needed the new brackets to do the back.
It didn't come in at 10,000? Do you remember it coming in? I'm not remembering that. We can check on that. 4?
So where is it on our sheet, Bill?
So it didn't come out of non-lapsing, right?
So we approved it to come out of non-lapsing.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm
So,
super
I
happy
know
that we have
should.
it.
If you approved to come out of non-lapsing, we should have put it on, out of non-lapsing.
I
you know.
do think that we should. Yes, I think that's,
And I wonder if we can
I guess we'll have to go back and
swap
look
it
at
this
the,
point.
minutes and find out
Yeah,
when it was approved.
Yeah.
So, and then just a couple of my thoughts on this. So, based on some feedback I've gotten over the last couple of weeks, I think this particular account will be under some significant scrutiny as the Board of Finance looks at our budget. I think that there is, well, we have a memorandum of understanding with them regarding how this account can be used. I think that there is some dissension among certain members about whether or not that memorandum of understanding accurately depicted what the majority of the board was looking for. And I don't want to get lost with the board in trying to rehash this non-lapsing account. So I really want it to look as clear as possible, and I want it to look accurate. And my concern about this page is that it looks like you took the number that we have left and then quick assigned a bunch of numbers so it would add up to that number. And that makes me a little nervous because I don't want someone to look at this and say, and look at them, they're like, this isn't being truthful or transparent. So I don't think that it is not truthful or transparent. Please don't misunderstand me. I'm just concerned that this might not be the best way to depict it. I do like the way this sort of first guy looks here about, when we did what was the balance, because I think it shows the balance go up and then come down, and then there's a deposit, and I think that's good. What I would love over here on this sheet, we have approved some of this stuff, right? So we approved the $8,000 for the woodshed, the steep grant match, the equipment for the co-op sports. I wonder if some of that stuff while you might not have totally accurate numbers attached to it, I mean, I do think we approved accurate numbers based on your budget presentation. If we could maybe pull those out and sort of indicate that those have been approved. So those things are happening. And then I would like in some way, I totally agree with Christine. I'm not comfortable with $25,000 being sitting in our field repair fund when we've really talked about that as being a big priority.
Especially when that matches a dollar amount that we pulled out of town capital. I think we should match what we're gonna spend on our fields, at least for this presentation, to what we save the town on the town capital side of things, because we pulled the proposal that we were supposed to get town capital improvement funds for the field irrigation piece. It was in for this next year. And instead we pulled that, but there was a specific number that we were in for capital improvement. If we replace that with what we're doing here, I think that that's one of those things that we then look back on and say, listen, this would have been in town capital. We are using non-lapsing to alleviate it.
I'm not necessarily sure that,
It doesn't have to be all of it.
I'm-
I'm just saying that.
yeah,
it's-
I'm not sure I'm even comfortable with that narrative, because what we did was we proposed it. So it was not accepted and could have been cut. So I don't necessarily want to say like, look, be thankful. What I just want to do is sort of present a really clear picture that we have a plan. And if there could be some narrative piece that talks about, like, we have this field study coming and we are committed to using a significant number of those funds, right? To fix that. I don't want to hand them this. I think this is going to be a problem.
Okay, so can I, just a couple of things. First of all, we approved I just had it. We approved the hardware for the elementary curtain on 10/12/22,
Thank you.
and it was for $7,500. And my note on that says that it still needed to be ordered.
We also approved 40,000, I believe, for the steep. Correct? I think it was a $40,000 vote that was approved for non-lapsing for the steep grant match, just because we were trying to say,
I just had that too. Hold on a second.
because it was originally like 125,000, and then I think on the secondary one, we approved 40.
I'm looking through my notes on it. Just bear with me 1 second. Steep. Just had it too. 20% I have here, but I don't have a specific number.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
All right, so can I come back to that in a minute? All right. So Steph, I hear what you're saying 100%. I think, so the list is good. And we know that there's going to be a lot of things. I think what we may want to do to the narrative to explain, and I understand some of the Board of Finance members don't like that they can't control that account. And I do understand that by state statute, they don't get to control that account. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't be working with them for their understanding of what our intentions are.
Right.
For the presentation, Troy and I have talked about, I'll probably do the non-lapsing portion of it. Troy will do the budget portion for the meeting next week. I feel that we should have an honest conversation about, clearly, we wouldn't have budgeted the way we budgeted with the intent to put $200,000+ 2 years in a row into the non-lapsing account. Understanding that there are some capital needs that we have at the school, and we are looking to fund those with the non-lapsing account versus going to the town to fund some of those. I think we should maybe have a couple of different columns of those items. One column being capital. What is the capital things that we are looking at funding? It's this garage shed that we need. We don't know the cost yet. We need to be clear about that. We don't know the costs yet. We haven't gone out to bid. We haven't done the full research on it, but we know we need it. We're in the process of doing a ground study. We know in the past, we were quoted anywhere from 140 to 150 just for irrigation. So we don't know what that number is going to come back at, but we have a pretty good feeling it's going to be significant. So I think if we columnized everything that's needed capital wise, I do think we want to talk about the bankers windows, the bollards, am I saying that correctly?
Bollards,
Bollards, the security cameras. I will reach out to, have asked Troy to reach out to Greg just to make sure we're not missing something on the security cameras there. I do think we can get those covered with grant. I think we should mention them though on the non-lapsing, that these are things we need, but we're looking to grant fund because these are for safety. But we do know there's a governor's grant that's just come out. Right. So the whole point, I think, of the conversation with the Board of Finance is not to say, here's how we're going to spend $440,000. It's here's what we're looking to do with the non-lapsing account. And here's what we've done. Here's what we're looking to do moving forward, but we don't have a dollar amount assigned to each of these things. I think the list is extensive. Anybody can put together in their head that we have a plan for this account. Unless we have a solid number on something, I think maybe we leave the numbers out and we prioritize.
Do we want to take the numbers that were originally in our budget, though, that we voted to move to non-lapsing and have them in a separate piece so that we say this was originally in the superintendent's budget and we moved it to non-lapsing?
Yes, so that would be another category,
Right.
right?
I think that we do want to have
And
those
that
as
was, so that was the supplies for the Alternative Education Center, I believe. That was also the equipment for the co-op. And I thought it was the
equipment for
innovative
It
instruction.
was wood shop. It was the innovative instruction, the 28,000, the ES and MSS HS academic programs, I believe, because it was 28,000 was the number.
So we can certainly, those numbers we budgeted for, and we can say we had budgeted for these. These are what some of the things that Mr. Hopkins came back with and cut, and we agreed that we could fund them with the non-lapsing. So I think our categories really are going to be capital, budget reallocations, just as we've done in the past. We showed budget reallocations to the non-lapsing account. Then our other category, I think, is educational needs, because really the non-lapsing account should be used for educational needs, not capital. While we are agreeing to look at capital, the educational needs almost need to be the number one priority with that account.
Can you also highlight somewhere in your narrative? I don't think you need a column for it, but I think it's important to point out that we have a beautiful new school that was built. But after we lived in it for a bit, the things sort of bubbled to the surface that need to be there, that couldn't be there because there was no money for it. Maybe they were value engineered out. And our non-lapsing account has done a lot of that. I mean, I think you can even connect a lot of the safety stuff to that, right?
Right.
So if you can highlight as you go through some of the things that this non-lapsing account has done to, I don't want to say complete the project because I understand the project was completed, but to provide the school with the rest of the things that school building project, which by the way, we had zero control over, right? That wasn't our budget to oversee our project, but there's a lot that we've taken out of non-lapsing to sort of do that stuff.
Yep. So it probably started out with a step back as to what we've done so far.
Yeah.
And one of the things is that we've really filled in gaps from the project that we didn't realize were needs, and that probably just couldn't be funded. And fortunately, we were able to provide those things. And so maybe give kind of a recap of what we've done, and then give a list of the priorities of things that we want to do. Certainly assigning a dollar amount to what we know. But not, I agree, we should not probably, do you think, Troy, assign a dollar amount if we don't know?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good plan.
And I get why you did it this way, because we want to show that we have a use for
Exactly.
$400,000. So it totally makes sense
Yeah,
to me
and
why
these
it
are-
looks
we
like
weren't
this.
making up things to put on the list.
Right,
These are all
right.
things that we need, right? Yeah, so, yeah, and it just happened to be like, it may add up to the whole thing.
Right. So what I have right now is a couple of things on my list to look at. Talking to Randy about the extra parking spots for the RFP. I will look to find where we approved a dollar amount. I think you're right. I remember that specifically. We assigned a dollar amount, so I'll look to find that. If I can find the notes of the dates, then I can find the minutes. If I don't have it in my specific.
Yeah, I'm
notes.
trying to remember when it would have been, because I know I made the motion myself. It's like I because I remember
I have everything from the non-lapsing, so I just got to go back and find the date. And we'll find that, okay? I have to make a note to check, maybe with Alan about when the basketball netting's going up, because season starts in a week and a half. I mean, baseball, what did I say, basketball? Thinking about the basketball game. So we need the netting going up soon. Again, the IT security cameras, the government grant for safety. Then I think if I can work with Troy to put together kind of what our discussion is going to be, how we highlight the things that we need. What I'd like to do is, if possible, I guess what I'd like to do is show you guys how that discussion is going to look and how that presentation is going to look. When can we do that? If we're all on the same page here on how we want to present this. And the other thing that's not in here is a piece of playground equipment that I also think we talked about, the butterfly, and I think that we want to include that as something that we would need. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, we have general ideas, but I think the installation cost is going to be a little bit higher. So, I mean, I have some ideas, but I think I like your idea of not really putting a number.
yeah,
And maybe in those categories, or like limit the capital of like, okay, we expect to have like 150,000 just for capital. You know,
Right.
like something like a number, but it's
but a bottom line number,
a bottom
right?
line, yeah,
Okay.
that kind of maybe can be fluid as needed.
Yeah, and the other thing, I think that if our capital number starts to look like it's going to eat up this entire non-lapsing account, I want us to have the flexibility to say, we may be coming back to the town for some capital, because we aren't in a position to use this account to absorb all of the capital needs. And the other thing is, we know very well, whether they believe us or not, that we will not continue to fund this to the tune of $200,000 a year. So this is it. This account isn't going to grow from here. When it's gone, it's gone. So we have to be very, very diligent about what we do with it. We have a lot of forward-thinking educational needs that we can do with it to support the goals of innovative instruction. And if we go and burn through 250,000 on capital, I don't want us to be like, oh, wouldn't it have been nice to use that for an amazing STEM program or something else? Because we were too scared to go back to the town to ask for the money for a shed. So I think we need to show it. I think we really need to have an honest discussion with them that this isn't a capital account. We're willing to do some, but not to the tune of $400,000. So I'm hoping that we're all kind of on the same page with that.
Yeah, so we would show the educational needs on top,
Yes.
and then this is what we would have for for capital improvements.
Yes, I think educational needs have
Yeah,
to be
that has to
number
be on
one.
top, yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
So if we put together the categories, we're presenting next Wednesday. Would you guys be available? I think we should meet by Zoom. I don't think we need to do a hybrid. Would you guys be available maybe on Monday?
I'm out. I'll be in Disney. So,
Oh, come on. Can you just skip that part?
but as long as I have some playground equipment allocated, I am happy.
Okay, and I think we won't put a dollar amount next to that, but in my head, I'm thinking it's $25,000 to $30,000. Is that correct?
I'd
That's,
push for more, but
yeah, that's just for the piece itself.
Okay.
So I would say like
Right.
50 to 75.
but again, I don't know,
That's
here's my question. Does playground fall under a capital idea? Is that considered capital because it lasts long enough, or?
Definitely capital.
Well, I don't know what the exact definition of capital expenditure is. It has to last more
Right.
than 10 years. Is that
That was
10?
thought.
I thought it was 10 years.
I think we put it on the list. I don't think we're at a point where we decide we want it or don't want it. We need to see where some of the other things fall. We need to find out what the shed's going to cost. We need to find out what the field study says. Then we can sit down and look at what kind of things can we do and not do. But I think we want it on the list.
Yeah.
And it just gets interesting to me where we put it, because I consider playground equipment to be educational because
Yeah.
it's movement based.
And it's
And so
also,
therefore it's a capital, but it's also, it's an education focused piece of capital as it.
So
I
let's,
know we need the shed, but
well, we can put
the
it
kids
wherever
won't be
we
in the
want to
shed.
put it. If we feel strongly about purchasing it non-lapsing, I mean, why don't we put it under education for now?
Yeah, I think especially because we're focusing it on the pre-K playground and where the teachers really have a need for more things
Mhm.
there.
Right.
And putting it under educational needs, while I understand it is a capital item, but
Right, no,
I think
right. I
it's-
mean, it's,
And I think when
Okay.
you look at what we do, the majority of what we do is really educationally focused, even if it is long-term. Like when you look at the stuff for the stage that we bought, I get that that's, capital, but I think that looks different than a storage shed.
right.
The fields for the kids, in some ways, like that it definitely is capital, but that's about our kids. They're getting a direct benefit from that.
That fits in with the phys ed problems we have with the elementary too, so that's how
Right.
I would
Mhm.
tie that in.
I mean, I guess I'm just looking at categories for, it's all educational,
No.
clearly. I mean, other than the shed, right?
But I know when you look at like we repaired the plumbing and the roof, and that starts to feel like, oh, that's different than our fields or
those
or
are
the shot clock.
maintenance as opposed to
Maybe that's how it
So
should
should we
be.
categorize it based on if a
Maintenance.
if it's a direct use to the child,
Yeah.
then it falls under educational need. And if it's, well, everything's for the child. If it's a repaired roof, then that's capital,
That
clearly.
Makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that.
So did we
Okay.
decide on Monday? I
Does-
put it
so
in my
does-
phone.
Does Monday work for everybody for just
What time?
could we do 6,
Actually, 5 would be easier, believe it or not.
5?
Yeah, that one, it works for everybody.
Okay,
And
that's fine.
I'll do it
I
tomorrow.
would prefer earlier because I'd like to be at the Board of Finance meeting because they'll be reviewing
Oh, they
the
are.
general government.
What time are they
budget.
meeting?
They meet at 7. So,
You'd like it earlier than 5?
no, or I'd like it earlier than 6. So I like
Okay.
Alex's idea of 5.
Okay, I'm pretty sure I can do 5. Yeah. I feel like we have para contract.
Right.
And you said it could be hybrid or it's virtual?
Zoom
Zoom.
entirely, Brian.
I can do Zoom.
It may be done. Hopefully we'll be done.
We should be done by
I
5.
think so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It'll be done in an hour.
Okay, so let's do 5 o'clock. It'll be solely Zoom.
okay, I can
Okay.
do that. If it's Zoom, I can do it.
And then what we will do is, Troy and I will work on it in the next day or so, and I will try my very best to get something out to you to look at prior to us getting together on Monday. But I think we're on the right track. You guys did a lot of work putting these numbers together, so I don't want to discount any of that, but I think to Steph's point, they're going to start thinking that we're putting things in that maybe, they just need to see the list. They need to see that we have needs and we have a plan for this account.
Well, and I think just to make sure on the governor's grant for safety, I think that it needs to be presented as, we think we can do these things through this, but if we don't, they are still
Mhm.
necessary things and they will come out of non-lapsing because they need to happen.
Well, they'll be on the, right, so
Right.
have them on the list. but
So they need to be
have
here and just say, we're
Yeah.
hoping that we're going to be able to do this. This is always our goal, is to save the taxpayer money by finding grants and other ways to do it.
Right,
But worst case scenario, we need these things and they need to
Yeah.
come from somewhere.
so the categories I'm thinking are educational needs first, right?
Mhm.
Then the things that we pulled from the reallocation from the superintendent's budget. So some of those will be educational needs, but I think we need a column just for reallocation from budget.
Mhm.
And then we will have a capital. And then a possible grant funded.
I think all of the possible grant funded are safety, so I might even put safety related.
So
Because I
maybe
think
not
that-
even call them possible grant funded, but just touch on
Just,
that. We're
just say
hoping
they're
for
saying
that.
Right.
related expenses, we're hoping to cover them with the governor's grant, but if we don't, we still need these
Okay.
because they're safety
Right.
related.
So, but call it safety. Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Should we say facility versus capital?
You want me to use the word facility?
Well, because roof is not, the roof we could get repairs, so. long.
Facility, okay, so
Yeah.
facility.
Facility.
Yeah.
Well, right, and then we will also talk about that, we've been in contact with the superintendent, or not the superintendent, the selectman, and we're looking at where do we define the line of what the Board of Ed handles and what the town handles, and when do we go back to the taxpayer and that kind of thing. Any other category that you guys would like to see? And then again, the narrative in the beginning will be highlighting what we've already done. Filled in gaps from the project, some of the other things. I think that'll be a better conversation.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay,
If
okay.
it's PD, like innovative instruction PD, that would be directly affecting kids. So it'd still be educational, right?
I think so, yeah, educational needs for sure, and I think it's a priority, so,
Okay.
Yeah.
because we really wanted it in the budget too.
Yeah.
But we didn't necessarily pull that up. Did we pull that out of the budget?
Yeah, we pulled
We
out
did.
innovative instruction.
The innovative.
We did it
instruction-
twice. I
So what we
believe.
could do is we could do it similar to what we've done in the past and put those under educational needs, and we can in the margin say reallocated from the budget, because we did that last time. We had a list of like, I don't know, 150 things, and it was all the different places we pulled it from.
Can I just, teacher academy piece of the PD, I think is going to raise some eyebrows. Like the 75,000, I guess if we
We're
don't
not
have
gonna
money,
have
it
a
doesn't
dollar
matter. If we don't
amount
have
on it.
dollars, it doesn't matter. Okay.
Right.
Can I just ask a question about the innovative instruction and whether or not are, so because we've gone back and forth about this, right? About how we're gonna pay for this, like how's the process? So I just want to make sure that I'm clear, like so you're just saying $2,500 and it would just be a one-time thing, or are teachers going to constantly come back to you and ask for things? I'm just trying to get your vision on.
Yeah, that particular line there is just a small piece of the innovative instruction.
Okay,
My superintendent's budget had 28,000.
yeah, that's what okay, so
Yeah.
that's what
So
I
this is
thought.
separate. This
Okay,
is separate from that. This is specifically to support the STEAM initiative in the elementary school, like
Okay.
the media center, because the Education Foundation gave $8,500 as a startup. And we said that it's just a startup, so now it's Board of Ed has to maintain. So this is the maintenance money
okay.
of that startup.
So you would anticipate, like, somebody would almost write a grant proposal to try to kind of work through that money? I guess I'm just trying to get a handle on.
Oh,
the
how they
process.
would get this money?
Yeah, because, right, we have to approve, wasn't that the discussion? We talked about how we would have to approve every line item. And I think in our subcommittee meeting, we've talked a lot about like, how are we going to handle this? So,
Yeah, I understand your
Yeah.
question. So it's like, how do we know the teacher's gonna come to you for the money and then you gotta wait to get, let's say that they come to you and say, I need $820 to buy certain things, we did talk about giving you a little more leverage with that STEAM money, and I'm wondering if, and I think we can have this conversation separate instead
Yeah.
of for budget preparation, but I'm just wondering if we want to designate how much money does Troy say I need to set aside to be able to approve for this as things come up, and then we approve that dollar amount
Right.
for STEAM, and then he can spend it as needed instead of having to, and I think just bringing back what he spent to let us know, hey, we bought this or we did this program, but I don't want to hinder Troy's ability to buy those things because we need to approve it.
right,
So the 2,500 is different than the 28,000.
Yeah.
2,500 is going to Ms. Schott or whoever is in the library media center doing the program that was NSEF.
Yeah.
Funded. So
Right.
that piece is automatically already going there. That 2,500
Yeah.
is going to that program in place, and that
correct.
28,000 is the piece that we're going to be pulling those other requests out of?
Yeah.
Okay,
But
Okay.
that piece is not listed here. That 28,000 is not. I don't-
it's not,
don't-
I
is
think
it?
it's EES
You're
and MS/HS academic programs. It says programs that
That's it.
circle number 2 innovative instruction,
it.
28,000.
That's it. It is listed here.
okay, yeah, I'm perfectly comfortable if we give
Mhm.
the library almost that 2,500, like, you do what you want to do with it. That's totally fine. Yeah, and then, so,
And the only thing I would ask is that we don't approve that tonight because I don't want to
No.
get messed up with this
No, no,
other
no.
discussion.
No,
But I think at our next board meeting, if we have put the non-lapsing on, we should go ahead and approve some of that so that he can keep moving forward with that.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And then so then that 28,000, we need to kind of come up with a process of how that's gonna be allocated out.
And maybe in chunks,
Yeah.
I would say, X amount at a time. then kind of come back and be, okay, here's what we did with 5,000 so far. Can I get an approval for 5,000 more?
Right,
Here's what we want to do.
okay.
Does
Yeah.
that kind of make sense? And I'm just throwing 5,000 out as a number.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly fine. I just think we
Yeah.
need to have a plan of how we're going to address that money coming in and out because of the non-lapsing piece of it, right? Because that's why we had it in the budget, was because then you didn't necessarily have to come to us every time.
Right.
So what
Yeah.
I'm trying,
Exactly.
sorry, I'm not articulating it very well, but yeah.
I
but-
know, I
how do
get,
we
I get
get
what
it-
you mean. I remember that was the whole discussion, was if it were in the budget, then he just has control over it. If it's a
Right.
non-lapsing, then he doesn't.
Right. So we
Right.
want to
forgot about
get
that
that
too.
control back.
Right,
I think we
Yeah.
talked about, so we determined that you could just allocate that whole amount for that designated purpose and then trust that the superintendent's going to use it for that purpose. And
Oh, right.
I could simply put it in my report, update like, hey, we sent these people here and these people there to learn these things. And I could update you on how we're expending it.
I
throughout.
don't think
I
it
don't
was
wanna be
concerned about you
delayed.
though, Troy. I think it was Bill was concerned about the way he has to write the checks,
See-
because when they come out of non-lapsing, he has to go through the town on a line item thing and he can't
Yeah,
just
Right,
take
right.
28,000 and give it to you.
Bill, do you remember this?
Right, so actually you have to give invoices to the tax. So, change I need my expense meter from here, I need, conference here, the conference here. All these invoices will have to put them together. And then take them to the town will cut the check.
But they don't have to be approved first. You can spend it and invoice it, correct? Okay,
All the town looks for my thing,
okay.
pay them on my. Because the town has no say. So, town, the city says, town has no say in how it's spent.
Right.
So when I tell her not to spend it, she does.
It was our policy that we approve everything. It wasn't with the town piece. It was that we have a policy that we approve every spend. So I think we just want to think about how do we want to address that piece of the policy with this particular line item.
okay, yeah, it's all coming back to
And
me
we have
now.
we have the ability to change that policy, do whatever we want with that. We can, say we did approve that piece.
I just wouldn't want to have a system where it prevents someone from going to workshops they found like,
Right.
the week before it's happening and it's a great opportunity and now they can't go because the board didn't get together to approve it.
Right,
I think our policy would prohibit us from saying, we approve this amount.
right.
Mhm.
And if we approve that amount, then
That's what I think.
And that's what I think we should do at our next meeting. I think we should approve the 2,500 for STEAM. And then I think depending on maybe wait a little bit till we see how the budget and everything goes, but then approve this 28,000 for Troy to use for innovative
do you
instruction.
think there's a value to having it approved prior to next Wednesday? Or do you think it complicates things?
I think it complicates
Okay,
at this
then
point.
let's wait.
Okay.
Is there gonna be kind of a game plan for the 28K, like a list of topics that we're going to invest in, I guess? Or just if something comes up, I'm gonna use some of that. That's my account for using it for conferences or
Well, I think
workshops.
that
or-
the overall concept is innovative instruction.
No.
So, yeah, and I think part of that is to kind of try to remain cutting edge in what we're doing with kids. And sometimes,
Well, you-
workshops just come up
Mhm.
and,
Well, you came up with 28K, so that must have been based on something.
well, no, I know it was based on that we used 25K this year. And I wanted to use more money next year. That's
Okay.
what it was based on. And you guys you'd like to see some innovative instruction acceleration. And then part of that, a lot of that is professional development.
So it's mostly workshops, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it also, though, could be used to pay teachers for their time in curriculum writing. Because we need to document the innovative instruction. And we need to do that because we need to have written curriculum for both schools. It's updated that demonstrates cutting edge practices, which are innovative. And also when NEAS comes, that they'll want to see written curriculum.
Biggest problem eliminating the lease time, teachers will be paying.
Right, so we could use some of this money for teachers to do some summer vacation.
Teachers, lease time, they, right, curriculum. Anyone that, you know,
Yeah.
When are teachers supposed to do this?
Right.
185 days.
Yeah, and we all identified when in the book study that time was an obstacle to everybody here personally and doing something new and different that results in better results, which is innovation, right? So this is why we're trying to be innovative and coming up with ways to allow those obstacles to be removed for our teachers.
So I just wanted 100% this 28,000 if we approve it all, because I swear I asked this exact same question previously and was told, no, that doesn't work that way with the non-lapsing. Like because I had asked about the idea of giving, can we give each administrator a certain amount, or can we give Troy a certain amount that's just for STEAM or something like that? And when we had talked about it previously, I swear I don't know if I'm misremembering or if I just didn't understand at the time, but I swear there was something that was standing in the way because we wanted it to be, I think the entire discussion was we want it to be the administrator has it. If the teacher comes and says, I want this for the end of the week, that they
Because
can do it,
it
but there's
is-
something wrong.
But right now it's, our policy is written that we have to approve each spend. So we need to, as a board, and it's just a board policy that we put into place for the non-lapsing. So we need to, as a board, decide if we want to earmark a dollar amount now instead of it having to be each particular item. Because the way it's written right now is we approve each item. I believe. I don't. have the
Okay,
policy
so we
in
would
front
have
of
to
me.
adjust our spending policy on the non-lapsing in
Right.
order for this 20. Okay, I just want to make sure that we're doing that
Right.
so that we don't approve this money and then we end up in a problem where Troy can't use it when he needs to.
No, it's
We
just
just
a
need to-
board
so we-
policy.
So we should look at that and make sure that we
Right.
change that, because I don't even think it was a policy, it was just a.
No, we did a
Was it a
policy.
it was
We
a
were
written
really
policy?
specific about it. Yeah.
We wanted to make sure that we had really good control over this really new account so that when we
I
were
remember when you were
asking
talking about it, but I don't
questions-
remember a written policy.
Do
you know what it's under?
We definitely have one, and I think that we probably could adjust it very simply with saying like, whenever possible, it's
Right.
the, you know, the item, the dollar amount, and then in cases like this, because if we're gonna use the non-lapsing account for stuff like this, which I don't think we initially intended to use it for, then we have to make a provision.
It was a policy. I just don't remember exactly when we put it through. It was very specific. We wanted to be super
Well, and
diligent
I
on
remember-
this.
I remember when it happened, I thought that it was a discussion on this is the process we were going to use, but I didn't know if it was written into an actual policy that then went into our policy handbook, because I don't,
Thought it
would
did.
it be in our bylaws?
I don't know. I'd have to look, but I know we approved.
I'll
the
search, I can
policy.
search for it after the
Okay.
meeting, I just.
Do you think that stuff will be
Um,
helpful at the Board of Finance meeting as well, to be able to put your hand and say like this is the policy?
Yeah.
When someone says, well, how is this used? Like, you'll be able to say that.
7171.
Thanks, Brian.
What number is it?
3171.1 non-lapsing education fund.
Thank you. Yeah, I can bring that with. and
I
point
think it
that
might
out.
be helpful just
Yeah.
to say
No,
like
it's a
it's
good
real.
point.
We have
Yeah,
them.
yep, that's a good point.
But
I don't want to be a stick in the mud about this one thing, but I am really concerned about the idea that our minutes reflect that we did approve that hardware for the elementary school curtain
Oh.
and it's not reflected in this. And I just really want to make sure our accounting on this account looks exactly the way it needs to. I never want to be questioned on it.
And I do want to just note that there's nothing that I can see real quick, and it's a very short policy, but it says nothing about how we have to actually approve the expenditures, but it does say each expenditure from the account shall be for educational purposes only. Based on what I'm looking at right now, unless I'm missing something else,
I don't think that's the right policy. I think that's the state statute policy.
it might be.
So I think that the board itself put together a policy, so we'll keep looking.
Okay.
But Chet doesn't think we actually did a policy. So we'll, again,
I'm-
I can look back through minutes and see if I can find that information.
I'm seeing that policy adopted July 15th, 2020. So it just might be to create the fund. You may have actually created another policy about how to administer the fund, but
Yeah, because that's when we approved, oops, excuse me, that's when we approved the non-lapsing.
right.
So we'll do some digging on it. We don't need to, we'll figure it out. Okay, we'll put it on the agenda for our next meeting. Anything else regarding the presentation for next week? Does everybody feel comfortable with the way we're going to proceed with this? I think it seems, you know, like we're really rehashing on it, but it is going to be a big talking point if we want to get our budget to move forward. So I think it's a good plan.
I did, and you are gonna put a general idea of what we think we might spend, or there's no dollar amounts at all? Like if we say educational, like there's no dollar amounts?
I think we
Other
could
than the ones
attach
we know.
dollar amounts to the things that we pulled out of the budget. Right, because Troy, you attached dollar amounts to it, and that's how we decided.
But are we gonna
Just check
talk,
it
we're
out.
not gonna talk, in my head, 400,000 to the Board of Finance is gonna be a huge number. And the idea that, oh, they're gonna use it for this, this and this, that's not going to, you know, how is that gonna use it? The idea that in the past, we had $150,000 set aside for irrigation as a capital expense possibility. Like, I just want to make sure that they understand that they're big projects, not a bunch of small things. I guess that would be my only concern in the presentation, but if I will defer on that aspect. If
And
people
maybe
think it's better
Christine,
not to have
in
it.
your narrative, you can talk about that.
I think, yeah, just give some time to kind of think that through. We will definitely, I think, touch on. We can't just be like, well, we think it's a $12 shed or, you know, I agree. Like, we have to say, these are big ticket items. We, you know, really talk about, it will consume this much money, if not more. We're talking about needing way more playground equipment than one piece, and we're not sure we can even afford to do one piece. So I think we do need to talk to the numbers, and I'll think about how we can show that a little bit without putting a solid number next to each item. you
Well,
know.
could we look at putting numbers next to the things that we know we have numbers for?
Yes, we
And I
will.
think that's where you put the numbers down so they can see this is already allocated. This is what we're actually already talking about. This X number of dollars being spent on, and this is going to spend it down to here. And here's some of those bigger ticket items that we still need to get hard, fast numbers on, but we know they're going to cost a lot of money. And it's money that we don't have to ask for out of, you know, the town coffers in order to actually, you know, approve or to get through. It's already, we have it. We just need to make sure that, you know, we're using it in a certain way.
No, I think so. Anything that we know the numbers, you know, within a relative 10% or whatever, then we will definitely put that number down.
Mhm.
So when we know the numbers from the reallocation from the budget,
Right.
things like that. So definitely. And then, you know, we'll show that to you guys on Monday. And if you have any thoughts, we can certainly tweak it Monday.
Maybe you also want to pull the purchasing policy and just have it. That's something we did new this year. It's very fiscally responsible. It shows some mirroring with the town's purchasing policy. But I think it's important for the Board of Finance to know that we also have a plan to buy things, right? We're not just going out and Troy's like, I think an $80,000 shed is great. And we're like, yay, $80,000 shed, you know, like that there is not only a practice, but now we have a policy. I think it's really important.
So do you think the Board of Finance is gonna go through each line item on the non-lapsing? Or?
I think unfortunately, they're probably going to spend more time on the non-lapsing than they will on our budget, which is incredibly sad, but I think that's where they're at.
Mhm.
Everyone wants to get. When you
It just brings up a lot of debate on why and then justifications and all that, but whatever. I guess if you need to go through it, but I don't know if that's the right forum on trying to pass a general budget for Board of Ed and just.
I think if it starts going down the direction, you're right. I think we need to steer away from that a little bit and say, you know, if you guys want to have a more in-depth discussion about this account at another time, but we're here tonight to talk about our budget.
I think that should be the focus. personally.
We can certainly let you know what our thoughts are about this, because I don't want to spend more than really 5 minutes of our budget presentation talking about non-lapsing. And then,
We
at the
invite
end-
them to one of our meetings.
oh,
We
that's,
invite them here to.
or
hear
maybe
what
I
we
could
talk
come
about
to
it.
one of theirs.
I totally understand what you're all saying about it, and I 1,000% believe you. But what I know is that we have to get buy-in in order to get a budget passed. And I think that when we're asking for a 5.2% increase and we have a balance in this strange new account that says $444,000 and change, it's going to require more than 5 minutes because they don't understand it. And I don't want to make them feel like we are punishing them for not attending a meeting or being short with them about the fact that like they need to do better understanding it or that we don't want to talk about it. I think what we have to just understand is that this is so new. It really is so new that this is going to, it's fiscally responsible of them to ask questions about an account that we have that has $444,000 sitting in it when we're asking for 5.2%. So we're going to have to talk about it. I think it deserves more than 5 minutes. I think we should be gracious in however much conversation they want to have about it, because it may lead to them saying, we get it, we understand it, and now we get why it's okay to give you this money for your budget. So that's like the goal, right? Is the 5.2. We want it. So
Yeah,
however we need to get there, I know it's frustrating,
I understand, and I'm not trying to sound negative by any means.
but it's hard not
But
to because
I've
you tried.
tried so many times to share the information and to get the information, and now it's time to talk about our budget.
Yeah.
And I have to focus on this, and I will, but I also think I can present for 40 minutes. I would rather open the door for questions.
I know.
I'm
I
going to
know.
present, I'm going to show what where our thought process is, what we're doing, and then let them ask their questions, because that's where it's going to be. And I will do my very best, Steph, I will, but
will.
I will be as polite as I can, but I have offered to come in over and over and over, and I'm not going to
And they
skip
know,
that fact.
Right. And they know. And so you can say it, and they know, and they want you there. So I don't think you're going to be impolite. I don't want the view to be that we feel entitled. Like we are entitled to all of this and we don't feel like we need to discuss it with you.
I
No,
don't
we
think
would
that's
never
the
do
intent. I
that.
think
No.
the intent is you discuss the budget, which is the 14 million, whatever it is,
Right.
and then non-lapsing comes at the end,
Yes,
personally.
Absolutely at the end.
That's-
It is absolutely.
I don't want this to
positively at
be the
end.
only thing that gets talked about.
right,
No,
right.
it has to be at the end.
And I think being respectful enough to have that first conversation of, we would never have built a budget knowing we were going to fund a non-lapsing account like this. I think that's where we
100%.
start.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So.
Yeah.
But no, I agree. And Brian, did you have something?
You're good.
Okay. All right. I think Christine's going to want to get in here. So, all right. Can we get a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Yep.